some of which were around the demographic dividend, and then there were others that were around other things that honourable members had made that are in our report from July, but they haven't served before the committee here, and so they don't go to plenary as resolutions. And so the question is, in a sense, it feels that it's very tied up with this, but we've left behind in July. And it may not be a question that can be answered on the floor. It may have to be answered after committee closes. But how do we not lose that very rich discussion in July with the executive and with others, and the 10 recommendations that were very sound recommendations made by honourable members? How do we get them back onto the agenda to get them into plenary for action for next year? Thank you, Chair.
No, that's quite a critical point that you raise, Jonathan, that we need to see continuous linkage of the work that we do. We cannot afford to assemble here, speak about very critical things, and then over a period of 6 months, they fall through, and nothing really has been done. We need to see the continuation of what we have recommended in previous discussions taking effect and shaping how then do we move forward with other agendas. So I would really say it's important that we go back to that to that discussion, look at what was recommended, and then see how then do we incorporate that discussion with this one and make sure that it enters into our plenary, into our 58th plenary, because otherwise it defeats the entire purpose of why do we ever meet and discuss these critical things, make recommendations, but at the end of the day, they don't make their way into where decisions are being made. So it is quite important to really reflect back and just see perhaps what may have caused the dislinkages and try to really bring them together again. Let's move on to the next comment. You have the floor, Malvis.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, honourable members. My apologies, I was not in the meeting yesterday, so sincere apologies. But just to assist with a few questions that have been raised with regards to the protocol. My name is Bevis Kapalo, and I am the Regional M&D Specialist for Plan International, covering Africa and the Middle East region. And so with regards to the question on minimum wage, I would like just to draw your attention to Article 11. You will see that it's extensively covered there. So Article 11 will cover basic conditions of employment. And there you will see that the minimum wage, minimum salaries, minimum wage, overtime, pensions, including rest, are all covered in that particular article. So in case you wanted to just get clarity there, it is covered. I also wanted just to assist with the other question, just to add to the comments already made on entrepreneurship, that when you go to article number 13 as well, it provides very extensive guidance there in terms of how active labor market policies should be developed, including establishing active labor markets. States should afford preferential employment and self-employment opportunities for youth, women, persons with disability. In fact, clause 2, I think 2D expressively mentions the word entrepreneurship there, which says promote reintegration of retrenchees into the labor market, including through training programs that aim to improve their employability and entrepreneurship. So you will notice that this particular article does promote both aspects of labor, so through employment, through skills development, and through entrepreneurship at different levels for different types of citizens. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then with regards to movement, that's probably an article that you may want to interrogate further whether it is still fit for our current issues. But when you look at Article 23, it does to some extent touch on how states need to be working together in terms of interstate relationships. And there is actually a specific article, let me just get to it just 1 second, which then also asks us to protect, in fact, it's Article 18, apologies, migrant workers. So Article 18, you go to Article 18, you will see that, again, it articulates how states shall formulate and implement labor migration policies and legislation to enhance labor migration, governance, and regulatory systems in order to safeguard the welfare and rights of migrant workers and their families, including enjoyment of fundamental labor guarantees under Article 4 of this protocol. And you will see that Clause 3 also then says that the state shall ensure that the labor migration policies and legislation promote safety, orderly, and regular labor migration, contribute to combating smuggling and trafficking, and so on. So basically that it's quite comprehensive. It does cover all the three questions raised. It's whether it satisfies some of our present challenges, particularly some of them that you raised that you may want to discuss. Thank you, Honorables. I submit.
Thank you very much, Belvis, for that. And I think Honorable Madikizela perhaps has a reaction. Before he comes through, I also did a bit of search here in response to Honorable Member from Eswatini about minimum wages. So the protocol requires establishment of minimum labor standards, but however, it does not prescribe any single regional minimum wage levels. It still leaves that to member states to determine, but it does indicate that it is necessary within our member states to have an establishment of minimum wage bill. So this then says we might still have differentiated minimum wage bills across member states, but at least it calls for that to be established within our country. It doesn't really call for one specific for the entire region. Just wanted to say that. Honorable Madikizela, I think you had a comment.
Well, thank you. I think we must have an honest conversation about some articles on this particular subject. Because there are terms that we use, like decent work. I don't even know what that means. Now, what is the biggest challenge that is facing the region? The biggest challenge that is facing the region, one, is unemployment. And what is the cause of unemployment? The cause of it, amongst other things, is that there's very low investor confidence. And what causes that slow investor confidence? It is caused by some of the legislations that are discouraging investors to invest. Now, here's the thing, because some of these decisions have unintended consequences. Now, you find that in Zimbabwe, I'm making an example with Zimbabwe. I don't want people from Zimbabwe to fight with me. I saw what happened at the main planet. So you find that in Zimbabwe, many people are not working because of partly of the reason that I've just explained, right? They cross the border and go to South Africa. South Africa, we have the same problem. But Zimbabweans, they come there illegally. They are able to get work because they bypass all these legislations. Employers who employ them bypass all these legislations. They employ them because they are not unionized. They give them any salary, which is not decent. But the difference is that Zimbabweans who left Zimbabwe because of the same reasons are working in South Africa. South Africans are not working because of the same reasons Zimbabweans end up leaving Zimbabwe. So we must have an honest conversation, because really, from where I'm sitting, of course, we've got to agree that people need to be paid a living wage. Well, I'll call it a living wage. But we must have a bigger conversation as to how do we expand the pool of people who are working? How do we deal with legislations that are really discouraging investment? Because for me, I would rather, it's a personal view, I would rather have a situation where I'm earning 500 Rand a week than someone who's earning 350 a month because he's not working. So there's an anomaly in my country. There are people who are earning 350 Rands for the whole month, who could be earning 500 Rand a week. But because we've set the bar so high in terms of some of the legislations, people would rather not invest, and then you don't create jobs. You create this welfare state, and then you then unintentionally opening the borders for people who are prepared to work for salaries that do not meet the requirement of minimum standard. But those people are working and they are earning and they put food on the table. So I'm saying this is a bigger problem that we have, honestly, as the region, because we create a situation that result into these unintended consequences. And I think it's really a serious problem. And we must begin, as we really reviewing some of these protocols, we must have these conversations. That's just my input, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Indeed, you are raising a critical point that we should not really ignore. The fact that the protocol does mention that there will be movement of labor, there will be standards, there will be protection of migrant workers and things like that. There are fundamental things that we really need to look at country by country in terms of what are some of the countries that will likely bear more burden as far as mobility of labor is concerned, and how then do we make sure that we address the fundamental issues or challenges that are being faced in those particular countries. And I think the protocol does itself say that there will be development of migrant labor policies that perhaps will then be addressing these kind of issues. To say, if we are going to be moving, we are going to be allowing movement of labor from the region across different countries, then what are the expectations? What are the policies and legislative instruments that will govern this movement? And how will they ensure that we are not opening up other unintended consequences, as you mentioned, Honorable? Because I don't think it would make any sense to allow people to move from other places, then they come into different states to distort the order and the legislative guidance that's already present in those particular countries. So I believe with this protocol, then it should answer the current situation that you're speaking about, because the situation you're speaking about is the lived reality of what is happening now, where because there is no really a regulation in terms of how to move from other countries to this place to seek jobs, then we end up having a black market of labor, where people are accessed from informal markets, offered wages that perhaps would not be encouraged, will not be looked at as living wages. But because they're in a circumstance where they need income, they end up taking those jobs. But then it disadvantages those that are governed by existing policies that say a minimum wage for this kind of job is this much. I'm waiting to get a job that will pay this much. Somebody goes and gets that similar job I'm waiting for something less. So it creates this whole, because we were talking about Operation Dudula, Honorable, yesterday, as much as we didn't go so much in details. Those are some of the unintended consequences if we don't look at these things critically, that we might have those kind of things happening. But like we said, it is a pity that we don't have our resource person here, because they would perhaps take us into confidence that some of these things really the protocol will find a way to address. But as we have seen some of the articles within, we are hoping that they will do so. But it is quite important, as you mentioned, that we need to have in our recommendations that interrogation of this protocol needs to continue to happen, so that all the provisions that we believe need to be clearly stated within the protocol, that actually happens. Honorable members, thank you so much for this part. This was a summary of what happened yesterday. So now I'm going to hand over back to our committee secretary to go through the recommendations of the committees that he has been able to compile for us. And it's important for us really to look through them and really agree that they're a reflection of what we discussed yesterday. And this is what we would want to leave from this committee into the plenary assembly as our recommendations as the committee. I think we'll update this given what discussions we have had today, because I believe this is what he was able to prepare for based on the discussions yesterday. There is so many things that have been discussed, very enriching conversations that came out today. So I'll be able to update this to include and accommodate the views that honorable members had today. Committee Secretary, let me then give the floor to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And before I get into this resolution or to the deliberations and recommendations that the committee made, I would also suggest that if the committee agrees, we can also make it part of our action plan that next year, starting next year, we really interrogate this protocol on employment and labor. It becomes our goal to ensure that we really understand it and we are really enlightened, so that our discussions further with the executive or in our respective parliaments are also quite enriching as well. And also, I think this would then link to the issue of the demographic dividend that John was talking about. We can then also leverage on their expertise to see how we can also leverage the demographic dividend within the broader protocol to ensure that our protocol also responds to the needs of the young people and the growing demographic dividend in the region. So I'll start, honorable members, by saying, following the presentations and deliberations, the committee made the following observations and recommendations to be presented to the 58th Plenary Assembly. Recognizing the foundational role of SADC protocols in advancing regional integration, economic development, and the improvement of living standards for all citizens of the SADC region. Noting with serious concern the slow pace of signing, ratification, and domestication of key sector-specific protocols, which undermines regional coherence, legal certainty, and effective realization of developmental goals. Aware that the timely ratification and implementation of the SADC Protocol on Health, 1999, the SADC Strategy for Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights, 2019 to 2030, and the SADC Protocol on Employment and Labor, 2025, is critical for addressing pressing regional challenges in public health, gender equality, and sustainable economic growth. However, concerned that the delayed domestication of these instruments represents a significant failure in fulfilling the parliamentary mandate, leaving critical regional policies without necessary national legal frameworks for enforcement and implementation. Further concerned that this implementation gap perpetuates systemic issues, including inadequate health system resilience, unfulfilled sexual and reproductive health and rights for women and youth, and the lack of preparedness for the future of work, thereby exacerbating inequality and social instability. recognizing the urgent need for parliaments to exercise their legislative and oversight authority to ensure that regional commitments are translated into actionable national laws, policies, and budgeted programs. Acknowledging the specific potential of these three protocols to create a more integrated, healthy, and prosperous SADC region when effectively ratified and domesticated. Now, therefore, the committee resolved to recommend that the 58th Plenary Assembly should, 1, urge parliaments of SADC member states to expedite the signing and ratification of the SADC Protocol on Employment and Labor, and to accelerate efforts towards the modernization of the SADC Protocol on Health. 2, call upon national parliaments to prioritize full domestication of the SADC strategy for sexual and reproductive health and rights into national laws and policies, ensuring allocation of specific budgetary resources for its implementation. 3, encourage member states to integrate the objectives of these protocols into their national development plans, particularly by aligning national health strategies with the regional health protocol and by reforming labor laws in accordance with the protocol on employment and labor. 4, encourage the SADC PF Secretariat to continue providing technical support to national parliaments in the form of model laws, implementation toolkits, and capacity building workshops to facilitate the effective domestication of these protocols. 5, mandate the relevant select committees within national parliaments to conduct regular oversight engagements with their executives to monitor and report on the progress of ratification and implementation, with a specific focus on budget allocations for the SRHR strategy and other protocols. 6, encourage national parliaments to foster multi-stakeholder engagement with civil society organizations, labor unions, and the private sector to build public will and ensure inclusive implementation of these protocols. And 7, request the SADC and SADC PF Secretariat to establish a regional monitoring mechanism to track and publicly report on the status of ratification, domestication, and implementation of these three protocols across all member states. So, honorable members, these are by and large the recommendations that came out from the discussions as we had them yesterday. And I will also add the recommendation which came from the House that there is need to really align the various policies and frameworks that we have, and also reform the various policies also in legislation to improve or enhance investor confidence within our national countries, which will ultimately lead to the growth of employment and our economies. So I will give you back, Honorable Chair, and open the floor to the floor for any other additions and comments.
Thank you very much, Committee Secretary. Members, there we have a draft of the recommendations based on our discussions. Would you say this is at least an accurate record of what we discussed yesterday? Are there any key recommendations that you would want to have us included here to get their way into the 58th plenary? Otherwise, this is the last item for our meeting today, honorable members. So if at all we don't have much, we are going to likely close the meeting. I see Honorable Madigizela does have a comment. You have the floor, Honorable.
Chair, I understand I was not here yesterday, and I had forwarded an apology. At first, I wanted to say I'm fine, but the first recommendation, where we are talking about the modernization of SADC protocol on health, I do think that now I want to suggest another recommendation. I do think that it should be treated really as a standalone, because I don't think we should take our foot off the pedal in terms of the HIV and AIDS as something that we are tracking, given the impact, in fact, the negative impact that the results had after the withdrawal of the PEP funding. And I think it's going to be important, Chair, and as a recommendation that we include it here as an ongoing area of monitoring by the region, so that, I mean, we can speak to the conscience of the executive and to consider, the issue of trying to prioritize the funding instead of depending on the foreign donors on this particular issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable. So if I hear you well, you want us to have a standalone recommendation that urges or encourages our governments to have a specific focus on ensuring that we do mobilize funding to support HIV programs, or you saying all programs that heavily dependent on funding. So we need to find our local mechanism to mobilize resources to upkeep and sustain those programs, right?
Remember, we have a goal that by 2030, we want all countries to have reached 95 strategy. And I think that's where my point is, Chair. Yeah.
Honorable members, any further comments? Otherwise, if we don't, honorable members, I'm going to offer or deliver my closing remarks and then go ahead to close our meeting for today. But I will still, as I'm opening up my opening remarks, I will still be looking on the floor to see if any member may have something that may come up before I step in to close the meeting.
Yeah, there's a hand here.
Yeah, let us allow the comment from Melvis.
Yes, Honorable Chair, thank you for the floor again. I just want to commend you for the very last recommendation that you've included there, which is around developing a monitoring mechanism. As you noted yesterday, the last 2 days when we shared on the model on ending child marriages, that it became very apparent when we had just a simple dashboard in front of us, how that it did invoke a lot of debate and conversation. It's very important that we should be investing time in creating monitoring mechanisms for our commitments, because that will help us be accountable and also help us to know how far we are progressing or lack thereof. So I'm very excited that you have that, and we will be definitely working with SADC PF to support them from a monitoring evaluation perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable member from Eswatini has something. We also have honorable member from Angola who will follow.
Thank you, Chair. I support the recommendation that Honorable Matigizela has just put, but can it be zoomed? I want to see how it's written. Is it crafted as health financing, or how is it crafted? That's just all I wanted to say. Otherwise, I support it.
Encourage national parliaments to aid the executive. It says encourage national parliaments to urge the executive to formulate and implement the SADC protocol, to implement, not to formulate, to implement the SADC protocol on health with a particular focus on enhancing domestic resource mobilization for the prevention and control of HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and other diseases.
Is that okay, Honorable? Okay. Honorable member from Angola.
Obrigado, Presidente. Muito bom dia, ilustres deputados. Eu gostaria, em primeiro lugar, de felicitar o nosso Presidente da forma como tem estado a conduzir os trabalhos desde ontem. De facto, tivemos discussões intensas ontem e complementadas hoje, e as deliberações e recomendações respondem, de facto, às discussões que nós tivemos, quer ontem como hoje, também. Nós registramos ontem que há morosidade na assinatura dos protocolos, e isto vem refletido aí nas deliberações. Temos metas a cumprir até 2030. Falamos ontem também da necessidade da criação de um observatório de monitoria e avaliação sobre a assinatura, para acompanhar a assinatura e a ratificação dos protocolos. Isto também vem refletido aí nas deliberações e recomendações, mas era preciso enfatizar esta questão que o presidente levantou, e muito bem, a questão dos fundos. Nós somos países livres e soberanos e não podemos estar a depender só de ajudas externas. As ajudas externas são bem-vindas, mas nós temos que ter um fundo doméstico para fazer face a essas situações, tendo em conta o que estamos agora a viver com a retirada dos fundos dos Estados Unidos. Então nós temos que nos precaver, criar o nosso próprio fundo para podermos trabalhar e alcançar então as metas preconizadas. Em suma, eu pedi a palavra para dizer que concordo com as deliberações e recomendações, porque refletem de facto aquilo que nós discutimos nestes 2 dias. Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And we do have one last comment from Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to all the honourable members once again for indulging resource persons in the committee. It's always a privilege to be here and to learn from the honourable members from the state. Thank you, Chair, for your chairing. Chair, could I just check? Earlier on, we discussed bringing back, trying to find the recommendations from July. Is that a mandate from honourable members to yourself to find some way to get that back before plenary? And it was just checking on the formality of that. Thank you.
Yes, I believe we can be able to go back and get that. And in our final report, given that this is a part of what we have discussed, in the final report of this 2-day meeting, we will have that incorporated in that. Yes, we'll make sure that it is included. Okay. Honorable members, thank you very much again. And I'm going to deliver the closing remarks for our meeting. Before everything else, honorable members, I would really like to pass my sincere gratitude to you all, our resource persons, for the support and cooperation that you have, the engagement that you have had during this long week of deliberations, and the support that you provide the table all the time, making it easy for our work to flow smoothly. It is through the support that we do have energy every day to stand here and try to facilitate these discussions. As we draw this meeting to a close, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to all of you for your active engagement, insightful contributions, and commitment to advancing the human and social development agenda in our region. Over the course of the discussions, we have examined the details of the SADC Protocol on Health, the Regional Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights Strategy, and the SADC Protocol on Employment and Labor, focusing particularly on their impact for health systems, labor mobility, and social protection in our member states. We have recognized that the SADC Protocol on Health provides a critical framework for strengthening regional cooperation in disease prevention, health system reliance, and equitable access to quality health services. It aligns with the national health policy, or it aligns with national health policies. Its alignment with the national health policies remains an essential achievement for sustainable outcome. And this is where honorable members are expected to ensure that indeed we have that harmonization between the regional protocol and our national legislative instruments. The SRHR strategy underscores the importance of sexual and reproductive health as a cornerstone of human development, highlighting the need for member states to integrate rights-based approaches in health planning, promote universal access to services, and address gender-based disparities that exist. The Protocol on Employment and Labor offers guidance on labor mobility, social protection for migrant workers, and standard for decent work, linking employment policies to broader socioeconomic and health outcomes, as honorable members did mention. We have noted that while the protocol establishes regional principles, effective implementation still depends on the ratification by member states and domestication into our own national laws as member states. It is clear, honorable members, that from today's deliberations, the regional integration and cooperation are essential for addressing cross-border health and labor challenges. Harmonizing policies, sharing best practices, and ensuring protection of vulnerable populations, including women, youth, and migrant workers, must remain at the forefront of our agenda. I urge all members of this committee to carry forward the insights and the recommendation from today's discussions into our respective national and regional engagements, such as the 58th Plenary Assembly. Let us continue to work collaboratively to ensure that the principles enshrined in these SADC instruments translate into real, tangible improvements in the lives of our people. In conclusion, allow me to thank once again the honorable members, our honorable vice chair, who unfortunately was not able to be with us here, and just wish her all the best. She informed me that she is having some court case. Let's just hope that it goes in her favor. Our distinguished resource persons, we really appreciate your presence, your continued support to help capacitate honorable members, help honorable members to have an understanding of some of the key policy issues that shape our region. With all this said, honorable members, I would like to thank you all and call this meeting to an end. Safe travels for those who are traveling back to their countries, and for those who are staying in South Africa. Thank you very much for your hospitality, and we hope to see the same replicated when we go to Durban in November. Thank you very much, honorable members. Yes, yes. Every to go in there, and you'll be there. Definitely. Organize everything. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Chair, I feel. Yeah, yeah. So let's communicate. That is my home now. Yeah. I was born in that. Yeah. Now, I was born for Chelsea. Oh, really? I really. So most ready for it. So I grew up in Panta. Oh, okay. So what else? Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you in the. Yes, yes, I was checking in everything up, but you can't be that. Yeah, probably not right now. So then, yeah, I really okay, so you know, but look up my flat. Yeah. No activity. I didn't that was very your design. No, I hear that. Yeah, going to continue for Honorable members, an apology once again. Seems like today is my day to apologize. Given the dynamics of our meeting today, there was a very big oversight that we did. Actually, before we closed the meeting, we needed to engage in a feedback session. SADC Parliamentary Forum would like to get feedback from all of us regarding our meeting in the past 2 days. This is in the quest for continuous improvement in the manner in which they organize these kind of engagements for us. So we are going to have our technical team here who are going to introduce us to the survey, and they will explain how then do we get access to it so that we can provide the essential feedback for them to use in improving our future engagements. With that, honorable members, thank you very much. Tech team, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and good morning, honorable members. Yes, as it's been mentioned, and maybe some of you are familiar with the first Menti we did on the first day of this plenary session. This is now the post-evaluation of the sessions. It's not necessarily of the entire program, but it's to gauge your level of appreciation of the topics discussed, as well as areas of improvement that you may suggest to us for consideration. So we're doing it via this Menti exercise as we did the first one. And we have Ronald supporting us. So if you're having any difficulties, kindly alert us and we'll come to your assistance. So we'll just give a few minutes for all of us to be on the same page, and then we can proceed. Okay, are we all on this front page? We would like to try and move at the same pace today. Hopefully, we don't leave no one behind. So silence means consent, I suppose. I hope it's parliamentary to consider such a move. All right, section 1. This is asking you as members, honorable members, to check your background. So we're going to ask you, the first question is on which country you're coming from. Ronald? So yeah, there's a distribution of countries there. You just have to select one. Wherever you're happy, you will press submit and we'll go to the next section. The next question is asking you, what role do you play in your parliament? Are you a member of parliament? Are you a staff member? Or any other role that you do play in parliament? So you select and then you submit. Okay, then the follow-on question is asking your gender, so either male or female. You simply have to select one of those two and submit. Okay, once you've submitted that, the Wait for you. Yes, hopefully. So that we. Okay. We're on the next page, which is looking at skip the agenda one. Go next. Yeah. We are looking at political party affiliations. Again, select if you belong to the one of those three options or four, whether you are ruling, opposition, or independent. And then submit next. We go on to the next one. Here we are trying to gauge your years of experience working in Parliament or interaction with Parliament. So there's options there, 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, and 10 years plus. In this case, we're looking at National Parliament. Yeah. So you select one option that is suitable to you, and then we move next. You submit. Okay. The next question is asking years working on SADC regional integration. So in as much as you've been in the National Assembly, how many years have you been working with the SADC regional integration agenda within Parliament? Again, there are options there, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, or 10 years plus. So select one and submit. If there are no issues, we move on to the next section. This is trying to assess your understanding of regional integration, previous trainings, whether you've received any previous trainings prior to this assembly on regional integration. So it's a question of yes or no. You select one option and then you submit. Then there's a question here asking you how long have you been a member? So the next, if press next. How long have you been a member of SADC PF? It's almost repetitive. You can simply select the how many years have you been interacting with the SADC Parliamentary Forum and submit. And the next section is looking at knowledge self-assessment. So in your own appreciation of knowledge and information around regional integration, if we go next, this is a ranking question. So it's trying to gauge how much of regional integration, how much information around regional integration do you know and appreciate? So the SADC regional integration agenda, how much of it are you familiar with? On a scale of 1 to 10, you rank accordingly and submit. And then the following question is whether you are familiar with the key SADC protocols and strategies. For example, the Regional Strategic Development Plan, the RSDP, among others. So it's a question of yes or no. In that case, are you familiar or unfamiliar with key regional strategic development strategies? If we have selected and submitted, the next section or the next question there is giving you options. Okay, which SADC protocols and strategies are you familiar with? So we've given an array or an option a number of options. If you're familiar with a number of them, feel free to select multiple options. We have the RSDP, the SIPO, we have the protocol on gender and development, we have the protocol on trade, we have the protocol on extradition, there's a protocol on facilitation of movement of people. These are the different options. If you know all of them, you're free to select all. If you know some, likewise, you may do the same. Once you're happy, you're free to submit. And we move to the next section. In the next section, we are looking at successes, trying to gauge your appreciation of the successes of regional integration. Again, this is in realization of the information that we received from our colleagues at SADC in the joint standing session, and then also in the subsequent days of the different presentations we received. So having been through those discussions, what is your appreciation of the successes of regional integration as you stand now? Again, this is multiple options. You may choose all those options or some that you are familiar with. So there is an example of the transport corridors within SADC. There's the SADC driver's license. There's the regional power pool. There was a lot of conversation around the Kariba power pool or power potential that it possesses. There's a visa-free entry into countries among member states. There's the different SADC peacekeeping missions, including SAMIM and DRC as examples. You have the SADC guidelines on democratic elections, which were adopted as a model law. So you have the options of choosing as you see fit, and you may submit. If that is done, the next part is now looking at the challenges, some of the notable challenges that you could be familiar with now. These include, for example, lack of political will, limited resources. There's the issue of variable geometry. This is looking at the different levels of development or different levels of integration that may exist among the member states. There's the question around political instability, whether it's a challenge, and socioeconomic challenges, as we know, youth unemployment and so on and so forth. So again, you can have multiple options to submit there. You can select, you can tick a number and then submit accordingly. The next section is looking at the role of national parliaments. And then if you press next, you'll be met with the questions. So the role of parliaments in the different stages of regional integration processes. First one, looking at ratification. What is your opinion with whether parliaments play a significant, moderately significant, or less significant role in the ratification of regional protocols and strategies or treaties?
Are they or should?
The question is they are, but to what extent? So whether they are very significant, less significant, or as you see fit. And you will rank accordingly and submit. The next one, that after ratification is domestication, again, a similar expectation there. It should be on ratification. Sorry, domestication. If this is fine, then we move on. Implementations, again, similar ranking exercise. Okay, if that is done, then we move on to the next section. This is looking at your level of understanding of SADC Parliamentary Forum's mandate in the regional integration space. So it's a question of ranking again there, whether you strongly agree or disagree that the SADC PF has a significant role to play in regional integration. So you may rank and you submit accordingly. If that is done, the next section is on familiarity with SADC PF's model law processes. Again, having been through the different trainings or the sessions or how model laws are made, where do you stand in terms of familiarity with SADC model law processes? Again, you rank accordingly and you submit. The follow-on question, if that was done, is looking at the value that you derive from the SADC Parliamentary Forum as you do your work at a national level. So again, you may indicate there whether you strongly agree that the SADC PF provides more value to your work at the national level or not. If that is answered, the next section is looking at the relevance, the quality, and engagement. And if you press next, it's almost similar to the last question, but here's looking at relevance to your parliamentary role. So the work, the information that you've received on regional integration, how much is it adding to your role as a member of parliament? So you are gauging whether it has any significance or less significance, whether you agree or not. If you've submitted, we are now drawing towards the end of the questionnaire or the Menti exercise. So this is where you gauge the training and its different sections, the quality of the training materials and content. So here you're checking whether if you give it a low score, it means the quality wasn't as good. If you give it a medium score, average quality, if you give it the strongest, it means the quality was good. So you may rank and submit accordingly. How effective was the mode of delivery is the next section. The presentations, the inputs from the floor. Do you think it was effective? If you strongly agree, rank accordingly. If you disagree, rank accordingly as well. Then we move on to the next question. How relevant were the case studies, if any, that were used during the sessions? The examples given, the example or the case studies that were discussed during the sessions. So again, you can rank accordingly. And are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the opportunities for discussion? Do you think there was enough time for you to make inputs into the training material or to the presentations that were being made on the floor? So you rank accordingly and submit. And then the last but least, yeah, is where you give us an overall satisfaction level of your on the trainings or the information sessions. So it's a rank between 0 to 10 again. You indicate where you think your level of satisfaction lies. And as we draw to the close, on the next section, we're asking, what are your suggested areas of improvement? Here, we have given you options just to make your lives a bit easier, but you can have the option of selecting multiple options there. Whether you think we need more topics, is there an issue of requiring more time for discussions? Do we need more resource persons to present? Should we have more SADC subsectors or different departments or units at SADC to present different reports on the performance of different strategies, whether that could add value to your work and your understanding of the regional agenda? These are the options you may select. You can have multiple selections and submitting accordingly. Yep. If you have answered that, that marks the end of the Menti exercise. Thank you very much, and I submit back to you, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I believe you have been able to complete the survey. And in doing so, I'm hoping that you have seen the difference between when you did it the first time and this post-evaluation survey. Because really the purpose of our engagements was to provide some bit of capacity in your understanding of the SADC protocols. And if you look at the question, you realize that it's somehow the same questions that we answered in the beginning. So we are hoping that the results will reflect that there is some bit of, capacity gained during our discussions, and that the feedback that you provided has been honest and will be feedback that will help SADC PF to improve our engagements, because there is really huge room for improvement in how we do this work. With that said, honorable members, this time I'm releasing you for it. I don't expect us to come back with any apologies. Please go have some rest, prepare for your travels, and see you in Durban. Thank you.